Let's say 45%. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like
this projector is messing with my device drivers.
Huh. Okay.
Very good. But
What happened?
it's only showing me my screensaver.
Okay, you have to.
I'm projecting
here
up
it is.
there, okay, but not here. It's like
Oh, that's very weird.
it's not doing that. Try it. See, it should be that one. Yes.
yeah.
So everything's good?
Yeah, it'll do. Mouse is gone, but. All right. This is I2NSF, I think. That's Linda. I'm Adrian. And we will start the meeting. If you want to have another meeting, you can do that outside where there's lots of hallway. Okay, eat this. This is an IETF meeting. The note well applies. Anything you say may be taken down and used in evidence against you. That includes anything you write in the Etherpad or in the Jabber room. We have a charter, and we are living by that charter. We have a mailing list. Please discuss stuff there. We have minute takers, I believe. Although I can't remember who they are. Minute takers, wave. Thank you, Frank. And John is hiding as well. The minutes are in the Etherpad if you want to join in, especially if you make a comment at the mic. When you sit back down again, check what's in the Etherpad and get it done quickly. Is anybody available just to monitor the Jabber room? I very much doubt we have anyone remote, but Kathleen might show up. Anybody do Jabber? Then I'm going to lean on Linda to do Jabber. Linda doesn't do, you're fired. Oh, you do, thank you. Thank you very much. The blue sheets are on the way around now. Yeah, please sign. Note that they get scanned and appear online after the meeting. Agenda, slides, audio stream, Jabber, wiki. Wiki is interesting. We'll come to that. When you go to the microphone, please state your name very clearly and slowly. Okay, this is the agenda. The agenda has been published. I won't talk through it now unless somebody wants to raise an issue with the agenda. Any agenda bashing? Going once? Going twice? Oh, okay. All right, talk through the milestones. We had a milestone for November 2015 to adopt use cases, problem statement, and gap analysis as a working group document. And what we decided to do was to adopt 3 things in 2 drafts. So we have problem and use cases together and gap analysis in a second draft. We were a couple of months late on this, but that's not too bad. Our main challenge in this meeting and going forward is to keep up the momentum and complete these documents, push them through to the AD for publication. So just because they're adopted as working group drafts, don't give up on them. Please read them and comment on them. We have a milestone that is now overdue. It was due for February, and we are probably in April now. So this was basically blocked. This was the framework. It was basically blocked while we sorted out the terminology issues. So we now have 2 documents on the agenda this time round, the terminology and the framework. The objective is that they are aligned, and we will adopt the 2 as a pair to address this milestone. So our hope is that after this meeting and maybe a little work, we will be able to adopt them quickly and not get into trouble with Kathleen. On the horizon are 4 milestones for the summer. You'll recall the next IETF meeting in Berlin comes around in July, so 3 of these are before that meeting if we get back on schedule. For the requirements for extensions to protocols, it's perfectly acceptable for us to decide no protocol extensions are needed. But in order to get there, we have to do the analysis, and that analysis may well show up work that needs doing. So we have the gap analysis draft, and some problem statements that also tell us which way to go. So it's time to start putting stuff together for that. Sue has a draft that's a candidate in that space. There may be other work that's needed as well. So if you're thinking of using the protocol to do stuff, you need to look at whether what we have is enough or whether we need to extend it. We need to examine the existing secure communication mechanisms. That was it's actually a pretty important requirement. It's all very well us talking about how to configure security functions, but if we do that in an insecure way, it's a bit pointless. So we have not, as far as I'm aware, started anything. Does anybody know of any work that's started here? No, I thought not. So the chairs are going to have to look at how to move this forward, unless some of you are really excited to work in this. Sue is permanently excited to do work. Yeah. Sue, we might look at building ourselves a little design team to support you there. That's great. And then the models are coming up as well, and we do have a number of drafts around the data models and some drafts around info models, remembering that we do not have to adopt or process info models if we don't want to, or we could adopt them and hold them as a point of reference until we've done the data models and then go ahead and just publish the data models. So I think that's kind of in hand, but it's going to need some work between now and the summer. And then there are a number of milestones off in the future, and it's great to start pipelining work for those. Don't expect the chairs to get too excited about this work until we've addressed the previous milestones, right? We want to work through the milestones in order. If you've got something that really you find really important and you want to work on, like the IANA registry considerations, that's really exciting for me. The only way we're going to make progress on that is if you contribute to the previous milestones to help drive those through. Wiki. All working groups have got tools pages with resources, an issue tracker, and a wiki. You should use them. Okay, all you need is a data tracker login, which is easy to get, and probably half of you have already. If you've got something you want to record, if you want to explain something, stick it on the wiki. If you've got experience with implementing something in a prototype, stick it on the wiki. If you've got a draft that's going and people have raised issues and you want to keep track of them and what the discussion points were and how to update the draft, put it in the issue tracker or on the wiki. That's fun. So we're having a little Microsoft moment. Where plugging in the projector disables my mouse, and therefore I can't get out of this presentation. Yes. Trouble is, the presentations are online. That. The mouse battery is flat. The mouse is a touch mouse on the laptop.
You do it?
Which way on that way around?
Ignoring notification.
Plugging them. Yeah.
Yes. Which way up? The other way up. That's
Always.
the with USB.
Oh yeah.
So now, nothing happened.
Installing.
Yes.
Installing.
Might stop.
It doesn't work.
Okay. Second set of slides. Okay. I need to almost certainly. I have light.
Yes. No, not right.
Okay, next, Sue.
You're going to have to flip slides for her as well.
My shoelaces match the box.
Very good.
I thought they were good pair of shoes. That way I can remember to stay in the box. There's a seat up here if he moves it back.
Well, you do this one and then I'll come back on the. That note, I'm afraid, you're going to have to do is vocal commands.
Local commands. Oh, this is easy because I have very little to say. Okay, I'm doing the I2NSF problem and use cases. Next. Okay, what's your comment? I've not heard anything. There has been silence. Silence is not golden all the time unless you really have no comments about the problem statement. I thought by the time we were done with it, it was good. But if it wasn't, comment. Otherwise, in my humble opinion, ship it to the ISG. Questions? How many people think we should ship it? Yay!
So that's a perfectly possible answer. How many have read it? I make that about 10. How many haven't read it? Okay, half of you are still asleep. So if on the mailing list 10 people said, yeah, honestly, I've read it and it's ready to go, that would be working group consensus. If we go to the mailing list as a working group last call and the authors say, publish it, then the chairs will be worried. So I would like people to be honestly able to say they've read it, they support it, they could stand up and justify it to their mother. Well, I could offer you justify it to my mother, but that's a higher
That's a higher
hurdle.
standard.
Yeah. Okay. So Sue, you believe it's complete?
I believe it's complete. We didn't hear any comments after we did the initial working group adoption. We did work hard on it beforehand. I've not heard anything, so I am human, so there could be errors.
Tell me about the manageability considerations section in the draft.
Tell me about the management consideration after 4 working groups. Not gonna happen today.
Okay, it has, Dan says that it's got 3 lines. Dan, you're somewhat experienced on manageability consideration sections. Did you count yourself in the group of people who said it's ready to ship?
You asked me to quote it. After 4 working groups today, you asked me to quote it.
Yeah, I am observing that this actually goes to working group, to IETF last call, and to an OPSDIR review. So if I'm an OPSDIR reviewer, I actually wouldn't expect too much in a management consideration section of problem case and use case, because what actually it's saying here is that this working group will deal or considers part of the problem statement and the scope of work only the provisioning part, and that's all. Some people in the ops community may actually kind of object and say, okay, so we may be actually be looking at performance impact at deployment, or we may be looking at alarm conditions, but at this point in time, I believe it's sufficient.
Nice answer, thank you. Okay, so it looks like the actions with the chairs to have a look at this and move to last call.
In all seriousness, after my other one, that's what the OPSDIR, Dan, you're quoting from the OPSDIR review. So that would be it. Does sector have a review that we should look at? And I have not, in all honesty, I have not looked at the sector review. So I should probably look at the sector review.
So part of Dano Mascano again. So part of the working group last call process, you can actually ask for an early review from OPSDIR.
Yep. It's a sector review I haven't double checked. So I will double check the sector review tonight.
John Strassner, since you scared me with the threat about explaining it to your mom, what I would propose to do, and you could give me an action to do so if you are so inclined, is to give it one last very thorough read through and then post to the mailing list, yay or nay.
Well, that's working group last call, what you're just describing anyway. Yeah.
Well, I thought you wanted something formal.
Okay, yeah. Well, so what I will be asking during working group last call is that people actually comment on the list that they have read it.
I haven't done, I will post to the list my sector.
I guess, given the state of our charter, I should back up one thing. We're not required to publish an RFC for problem statement and use case. We're allowed to publish an RFC. So having done this work, we could just say, okay, it's a line in the sand. We know what we're doing. It guides us, and we can go on. People were saying ship it. So I ought just to do a hum in the room. If you'd like to see this work as an RFC, please hum now. The humming with microphone is cheating. If you really think it's a bad idea to have an RFC, please bark like a dog. Somebody meowed, yeah. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Yeah, you think I may have skewed the question there? Yeah. You security guys, you see through everything.
Okay, so I will send the sector review and to the list. Thank you for that wonderful grilling. First. Oh, Meet Echo works, right? Okay, now, on the gap analysis, I realize this is a mighty tome of work. I'm going to ask real upfront, how many people have read it? I'll be, okay. I had a couple people say it was a real good introduction. And I'd like some viewpoint. Does it do the slide thing? Go next. Thank you.
Really?
Mayo Sarni, and Mayo, if you're here, if you will stand up.
How is not here?
Mayo's not here. Virtual Mayo, thank you. He gave absolutely 2 or 3 rounds of excellent comments. So A+++ for my. In order to get this one at last meeting, should stand in the pink box. At the last meeting, you all said the terminology wasn't really aligned. And so I and some other authors kicked off the terminology. And I think it's aligned, but I really need a few readers just to say, I think you got it. Because last time many of you said I didn't really have the right phrasing. So I'm new to the security area. Please read it. I have kept the update portion of the IETF. I've actually tried to keep it up to snuff, and I've tried to keep the ETSI portion up to snuff, and I'm trying to look at all the sections and keep them up. My plan, go ahead, next slide. My plan is to continue to beg you for review and comments until we publish the framework and the first data models, at which point you don't really need this anymore, but it will serve as an introduction to the gaps we saw, and then publish it along with it. Thoughts? If the working group says, we don't think this is any good, I'm fine, because what it's done is really helped us come to this point.
Dan Ramascanu. One observation, and I'm guilty as charged because I didn't send in an ordered manner comments to the list. But one observation that I do have is that a large part of what we are doing as a scope is related to data modeling and information modeling, while the document in its current form has a strong orientation towards protocols.
Yes, would you like me to add up data modeling? I have.
Actually, data modeling and data models.
Yes,
because
I'd be glad to.
We need to actually, as we have like some, I believe, June milestones related to
Sure.
data models. We need to understand what's
out
there in the IETF or out of the IETF in order to, and can be possibly reused.
Okay, I will add those sections. Good comment. I have one, could you stay at the mic for just one moment? Dan, I have one comment that you may help on. Okay. When I get into data models, the ops state discussions are fairly vigorous still. Should I capture the ops state discussions, or should I, as they go, so I can inform the working group, or shall I not? How many people know what I mean by the ops state discussions? If the operational state, the Open Config group has proposed changes to the base data models. And so this has changed some of the original configuration model and logic to something new.
Yeah, so you have, frankly speaking, the upstate discussion is kind of a shared item between the protocol and the data model space. But as you have for the protocol, you actually have like when you mentioned RESTCOM, for example, you mentioned that it's work in progress, and I assume that a similar thing will happen with the data model section. So at this point in time, if it was today, I don't know what would be the situation when this is written, but if it was today, I would probably just mention that this work is ongoing and it's work in progress,
Right.
and put a reference to the internet draft.
The reason why is because I2S is in the middle of that, and if you're cloning I2RS for I2NSF, you'll be in the middle of it too.
Right, and good luck to all of us. We need that clarified and stable, but
Okay.
at this point in time, that's what we can say.
Great
So
feedback.
doing anything more in detail is actually subjecting us to changes as they change.
Okay, how many people would like a Cliff's note to the gap analysis put someplace on the wiki? Okay, I will put a Cliff's note to the gap analysis because the whole purpose behind this is to save you the pain that I've gone through learning all these pieces. And I'll try to put very short, is that okay?
It's a wiki, yes.
So is that something that'll help people? You're feeling overwhelmed by all the terms? Okay.
John Messenger. Looking in the gap analysis, I note that you've looked at a number of organizations and industry groups that are working on security functions, and I don't see IEEE 802.1 security group there, which is a very, very active security group with a whole bunch of standards. Is it relevant, or is it at the wrong layer or something?
Which one?
IEEE 802.1 has a security.
Yes, I know, AX and AR. And
Yeah,
do you want me to do
AE.
that?
Well,
I've
the
been
question
aware-
is it relevant to your work, or is it at the wrong layer or something? Is that why it's not listed?
on this one, John, I'm going to turn to the chairs and ask them that question because my opinion might be biased because I have strong positive feelings toward the IEEE. Bob, it's your turn.
I have a finger in the gap analysis and the rest of it, and I've had a finger in 802.1, and it's kind of interesting how to put it in. 1AR definitely plays a role in some of this work, but it's more how I2NSF may be used to configure the management side of 802.1AE in terms of how 802.1X works and so forth. So it is more a customer of this in terms of that, with the exception of 802.1AR as how we handle the identities of the devices.
So I'll give you an ask, John and Bob. If I write something of it, will you review it?
Sure. Of course.
I know. You're stuck with it. Go ahead.
Dan Romascano. So I'm slightly in disagreement with Bob, which means that I'm probably wrong. But it looks to me that actually as some of the management of the virtualized space, especially when it deals with assigning addresses to virtual entities, actually does belong to the space that we are looking at, and this is being dealt with by 802.1 AR. So actually there may be an aspect that is not only on the customer side, but actually also
But
on
it may
the
be on the other
technology
side.
provider side.
We didn't say that. We said 802.1AR is possible.
Okay. Yeah, so I missed.
Yeah, maybe I need to call. Maybe Sue and I need to work harder on calling it out specifically, is what it is, and
Yeah,
and we will work on that. I mean, it's kind of buried in there, and I got to undo
know-
that bearing.
Who else would review? Listen, targeted reviews will help us with this gap analysis. Okay, I got 3. Anybody else? Okay, Frank. Anyone else? Luann? Okay, that will help us get through this sections. Anybody feel like they just want to do a section of this? Don't be afraid to just do a section. Read a couple pages and send me something. I'm lonely.
This is ours. Thank you. Okay, terminology time. I find it shocking that you are too busy taking minutes to come.
Yes. So I'm going to try and go as fast as we can. So Clint. So as Sue and said and other people, there was some contention about terminology. There's also a lot of other drafts that are doing terminology. So big surprise, we built a terminology document. Because it would be nice if we were doing security if terms were actually precise and well defined so that we could use them consistently. So we've put together a first shot. It's fairly complete, but there's a couple of new inputs that I want to go over. And this is targeted as an informational draft, obviously, and click. So the security and policy parts are fairly complete. I mean, that being said, if you compare it to something like 4949, which goes on forever, it's obviously not as complete as that. But I think it's getting close to being good enough for our work. We specifically chose terms that would help facilitate implementation. So things like capability and context and interface. We had several agreements and then disagreements as far as whether we should include things like virtualization. Will probably get shot, but I think the consensus of the co-authors is to now take this out. Thank you, Diego. And then there's also some concepts like context and profile and also capability that are commonly used in many other groups. I think it's important that we synchronize with that, or else no one's going to understand what we're doing. Click. Open issues, I think we've settled that virtualization will get killed. We still need to do some work on security controller versus generic controllers versus some other things. And the most important thing, click, is Sue found, or the SACM terminology authors, which I don't know. Oh, hello. Well, actually, he hunted down Sue and said, hi there, we've got some similar terminology that's developing in SACM. So big surprise, we actually agreed that maybe we should sync and try and come up with some common terms. So I did a brief speed read of the SACM terminology document, compared it to ours, and yeah, I think that there's some things from SACM that we should just copy and paste and reference and say, thank you very much for the definition, we're going to use it here. I think there's some others that maybe we can contribute to SACM's work. So for example, when you look at authentication and authorization, the root of the problem was we used 3539, I think it is, the AAA profiles, and SACM, of course, used 4949, which is the tome. And arguably, the tome is a little better, I think, there's some things that we're using with authentication that might help the I2NSF work, but the SACM version in this case, I think, is more complete. On the other hand, things like events and policies, I think the I2NSF version is a little more up to date. I mean, SACM, to its credit, used 3198 and 3444 for policy and information model. And we've tried to be a little bit more precise in the terminology. Diego.
From Java. That's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
But Adrian has replied already. I don't know if. No. It's there is a request a question saying, can you reference as opposed to copy and paste, so the definition only needs to be kept in one place? And it continues. I thought it was you, but no, it continues. Adrian, if you've already got this covered, no need to say it at the mic. I have said it, so sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think while we develop the terms, it's really helpful to have the text in front of us in one place. Before we publish, we should publish the text in only one place. So whether that's in a SACM document and we just have one line that said, when we say tomato, we actually mean tomato as defined in SACM. So that people have got a good pointer and they know that the term is defined somewhere. But duplicate definitions are always dangerous.
For what it's worth, there won't be one line. It'll be like a list. All these terms that we use are referenced from this particular whatever.
Sure.
And then the rest of these are
Just as a reference, it was our area director, Catherine, the one who was making.
And so this is just a brief scan of what Sue and, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Hank? Yeah, and Hank saw. There might be a couple other terms, but it's a good start. At any rate, we will sync with the SACM authors, and the next iteration of this will hopefully have an agreed upon set of terms. And click, that should be it. Other than we don't expect this to be finished by Berlin, but we expect it to be in reasonably good shape. We can't, what would be even better is if we get more working group comments about the terminology, and then when we're happy, we'll make sure and let the chairs know. That's it.
Thank you, John. That's I appreciate that work. Don't run away. I'm interested in knowing what the percentage overlap with SACM. Are we just talking about 2 or 3 terms?
Let's see, 1, 2. On the order of 10 terms. Is that right, Hank?
Yeah, there's a term itself.
This is Hank speaking, sorry. On one side, on one hand, we have the actual term definitions, which basically are identical terms. And then we might have also semantical overlap with different terms. So that's a little bit more difficult to find. More thorough review is, of course, in order. But at the moment, it's about 10-ish. Yes.
Okay, where I was going with the question was whether we end up with a joint document defining a superset of terms, or whether we're better off going with the 2 separate documents and us pointing at the SACM document.
I think the biggest overlap is already in items or terms that are defined, for example, in 4949 and such. So probably we just have to make sure that our different use of very specific terms in the context, like for example the controller, just highlight that there are different kind of controllers out there and different terminology, which is kind of obvious, I think. But again, referencing, highlighting this is okay. So I think I'm more on the side of separate documents, but maybe it was.
I guess that John Strassner. I'm firmly for against separate documents, so whatever the working group thinks is great. Just to give you an example, one that I remember, and of course, having said that, I'm sure Bob will correct me, but authentication, right? So first in SACM, you differentiate between authentication and authenticate, which is actually a good idea. Second, in SACM, you use 4949, which says authentication is verifying that and that this attribute value is correct. Whereas in 3539, it's more of we want to verify if an entity is actually who they purport they are. The difference being that it might not just be an attribute or a set of attributes, e.g. in RBAC or PMAC. So that's something I think we could work out. And now Bob's going to shoot me.
Not at all. It's just that, I mean, 4949, as you say, is a tomb. It's such a wonderful work. And there it is a generic definition attribute. An attribute is whatever it is. Whereas in the other one, it's the specific case. And so since we're more dealing with that specific case, that makes sense to use it over the more generic. Whereas SACM, what SACM is dealing with, using the 4949 definition really works in their environment. So in this particular case, I absolutely agree that we use the two different sources definition.
Right, and that tells me then a separate document with pointers as necessary. Thank you. Diego.
So the latest changes to the framework document, which by the way, looking at the number of authors, probably when we go the royal path, probably we will be asked to be less. Well, you can always say Edward and Diego Lopez in one single. Okay, anyway, next one, please. So just this is a reminder. This is a drawing that I like to make, and this is simply about what we have: the security controller, receiving policies from the clients, acting on capabilities on the network security functions, and having a registration interface for the developers management system. Next one, please. And this is how it says with ASCII art. And with the term vendor rather than developer. I prefer developer, sounds more modern, you know? Is better connected with the new way of dealing things with open source, etc. Rather than vendor, but I'm happy with vendor anyway. But you can see the difference. Now it's not so sexy and good appealing, though exchangeable and readable in any terminal. Next one, please. So major changes. The first and most important is that we have aligned terminologies. So now the idea is that whenever, well, with all due caveats that we have something can have slipped out of our mind, but basically whenever we say one word, it means the same that in the terminology. And this is important. We have changed the rule provisioning structure. That is another very, very major change, because originally we have something that, mostly the complaints, the formal complaints mostly came from John, but there were from many others, finding that subject, object, action, function was a little bit convoluted. So now we have better aligned with the common practice of event condition actions. We are still using a packet-oriented paradigm or flow-oriented, so we're talking about this in the same terms, and we have nothing that changed that. And we have forgotten about mentioning PSIM. There were serious doubts about the PSIM applicability and the flows that PSIM sorry has. Hey, good. We are making a chorus. Next one, please. So more in more detail, with something that when reviewing the slides, I realized that I put that we had made a clarification of clarified, which is something that you can be clarified to the square or something like that. But the idea is to make a clear statement that we are dealing precisely on network security functions that are based on a flow-based. There is a discussion that we have left open, packet-based, flow-based, just probably to avoid that. My impression is that we had to solve it and working in a flow-based approach, but this is something that still I would say we have to discuss a little bit. And we have made another few statements on that. We can follow an ECA approach for defining the policies. We have make a formal definition on what is an event, what is a condition, and what is an action, and what is a rule, which is very important, and the aim of those rules and where those rules are focused on. And there have been more detail on the capability. I would say in all interfaces, but mostly on the capability and on the part of the developers interface and the registration interface. Apart from adding some other security requirements, as in a security paper, in a security draft, should take hopefully more than 1 page. Next one, please. So the important thing here, and this is something that I like very much this phrase, I saw it, it's inside the draft, this idea that attackers don't follow standards. I love it. Originally, and I remember at the beginning of all the discussions, probably it was in Hawaii, when we were trying to classify the attacks and classifying the functions in front of it, etc. And well, doesn't make that much sense to say, hey, since they are going to attack me through vector A, B, and C, I'm going to prepare functions 1, 2, or 3 as a reply to them. So the idea is to consider something that is much more flexible.
Attackers love standards because then they can figure out how to attack you.
No, definitely. But they reinvent them somehow.
So Diego, you're telling me that attackers do not set the evil bit?
No. From time to time, that's the problem.
I'm confused. What's the point of the evil bit if they don't set it?
Well, it was about the operators setting it, right? Okay, so the idea is that we start with the idea that we are dealing precisely with headers, payloads, and the context. Next one, please. And we are considering 3 types of interfaces, and the document currently is making strong emphasis on the third one because it's where we're considering that the framework makes more sense. In the case of the internal configuration of the NSF, we assume that it's very much connected precisely with the developers' decisions, the attachments as well, because that depends very much on the capabilities of the network. Signaling is about moving back and forth information. From time to time, I have my doubts whether we should consider a little bit more on signaling, but it's true that the part in which we're interfacing to, not from, the network security functions is precisely when it comes to rule provisioning. Next one, please. Well, this is more or less, this intends to be a summary of how things are defined, whether an event, whether as it's an event, which are the conditions, which are the actions. The event determines whether the condition clause can be evaluated. Whether, not necessarily when, because events is very much associated with time. Normally is something that happens in time, but not necessarily. Conditions are the values that are based on the, as we said before, on packets, either the headers or the payloads, and the contextual information, and the actions are the processing that takes place as a result of event and a set of conditions that have matched. What is important in both cases, in the case of conditions and actions, is that we are allowing for developer define or NSF define condition and action. So we have this additional degree of freedom for defining general actions that are outside of the knowledge of the security control. I mean, the knowledge in terms of the semantics, what they would imply, and in the condition as well. So you can find them according to the specifics of the network security function. Next one, please. There are some consideration. I know that John doesn't like the V. There are some consideration of the VNSFs. I have my doubts. No, I must confess that some of you may see me as a Mr. V or something like that. To some extent, I am. But the more I think about how we are dealing with this here in this group, the more I would prefer not to have too many V's. If we had to rely on some of them, probably yes. Here is that some consideration on what happens when you are running the network security functions on a virtualized infrastructure. This is something, again, that to my taste we have to review, because we're talking about interface to network security function in general and should be applicable, whether they are virtualized or not. Matt?
Yes, Diego, I already raised this comment for the terminology draft and also for this one. I still continue. I don't see a need to define another yet term to denote the same, because the network service function is already an abstract terminology. It does not have any adherence with it, a physical or virtual. So just defining a virtual network function, it doesn't make sense to me. This is so. That's the first point. The second point is that I still don't see something which is specific to what we are doing in this working group that will be specific to the virtual context. So unless you identify this kind of specific items, I really suggest that we stick to one single terminology, which is network service function. Let it be virtual, topology, physical, etc. And we don't care about that. Thank you.
No, that's. I'm glad you say so, because we look like we are converging in a view. Originally, I must say that originally, when we start discussing this, probably part of the reasons for starting this activity were related precisely to the movements around virtualization, and that's probably has influenced.
I don't know how well it's addressed, but for me, virtual adds in another level of complexity in terms of managing and protecting the secrets, the keys, and so forth.
Definitely,
that
yes.
a physical NSF may not have. So some wording about that may be all that we need to do. No, what is this? What distinguishes in terms of security functions, the difference between the two, and run away from it as fast as we can after that. But yeah, no.
This is something where the protection of the secrets and how you move them around, etc., is something that is done. Are you on your way? Oh, okay. Okay, so next one, please. So other aspects that are considered are the connection between the controller and the NSFs. Yes. No, it's like a clarification on the clarified. Sorry. And well, this the connection of the what is considered in the draft at the connection between the controller and the NSFs, the capability interface for the connection. I know that in the charter of the I2NSF, we are committed to consider only the capability layer. But when we are making an analysis of the conditions of the connections, I was wondering whether it would make sense that we consider as well which are the requirements for a proper connection between a client and a controller. In terms of securing the connection, etc. The attestation draft is about that, mostly, precisely. And this is something I would like to consider as well. Most of the rule considerations are for the capability layer, for sure. There are some hints on the service layer policies, preparing setting the ground for the future evolution of what we'll do here. Very lightweight. And capability negotiation is mentioned, and there is a considering distinctions of the connectivity providing profile. That is somehow connected to you. So if you want to comment anything, Matt, this would be. So the idea is that extending this would be, and if you want to know exactly the number, first better ask Matt, because I don't have it in my head right now. I put an additional 6. Okay, but anyway, it's something that is doable because you look look for connectivity provisioning profile. The idea is precisely when you register your capabilities is to have a protocol for doing so. And looks like it will be easier to reuse something that is existing rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. That is very fun, but well, from time to time, not that much productive. Next one, which is, I guess, is the last. I know, that is the last one. I know, there should be, yeah. There should be one. No, that's true. I was thinking that there was one of the next item, but since I was talking about possible changes in several places, consider it as a summary. Basically, apart from trying to clarify the capability negotiation, considering the client controller connection requirements, and trying to forget about the virtual aspects as much as possible. These are the what I have in my mind for the coming. Though you have seen we have many authors, so probably things will change a little bit more.
Diego, sorry, Sumandra from F5. I can shout. So I think I like this thing that you actually put up the framework that makes sense, but it kind of borders implementation. So because I see aspects of controller, I see how the events need to be handled. Now, let's step back and say you have firewalls and other things. They all have event machines. They have different policy models. How do you fit this thing in the existing?
But this is hold on. This is for the controller to feed the different functions. It's not for the functions to implement this.
Okay. So
this is the controller has to translate. I mean, the controller, when you register a function to the controller, okay, the function has to declare an implementing capability A, B, C, and D. Some of them will be standardized and implementing packet filtering according to headers, or all implementing, I don't know, flow control based on throttling or whatever.
That's perfect.
And then what the controller gets is this set of capabilities, and depending on the policies expressed by the user, transfers those policies into the general capabilities sent to the functions. The functions do with that whatever they want.
Okay.
That is only for the controller, not for the functions.
Okay. Thanks for it. So what about the events? Because I see I was going through this thing and says there's some event framework also. So that's the part I was on.
Exactly. I mean, it's precisely the events I have in mind. For example, is think about that you want to implement a parental control filter. Okay. So what you do is the event whenever there is a connection from.
Okay.
My son at this level would be from Mac X, Y, and Z. You have to apply this and this and this and this.
Okay. So I mean,
again, how you translate it into the internal function is up to you as implementer.
Correct, but I'm saying that means the security controller is a controller. It's like it is working at a flow level. So assuming number of events, it may not be scalable. Actually,
but take into account the security controller is not a reactive controller. It's not the typical dumb open flow controller that gets flows in or packeting. And the idea is that you install the rules according to the policy. And normally, unless you define some particular rules, and this is something that still I think we have to discuss, you are not reactive. This is a configuration of your security environment, translating policies to capabilities and allowing that those policies map into different capabilities from different functions.
Yeah. So I have a general theory about not calling those things as a controller. Controller has a specific input coming from data and the configuration, and that's why you call controller. If I can actually map it out without any input from the user data, that is not a controller. That's my definition of. So that's
well, this is the term of. I would say that this is the term that has become popular after OpenFlow. Yes. Yeah. Maybe. Yes. I mean, a controller is something that controls, not necessarily something that is in a real-time control loop.
Coming from the people who are writing networking software, they have a controller and they have a specific things in mind. when they write a control plane. And then there's the general management, but it sort of goes hand in hand.
No, well, this is the eternal discussion. What is control and what is management, and how tight is the loop of control, how tight is how loose is the no, yeah, you're right. Probably, I don't know. This is something that we probably will have to sort out before we move this forward. Yes.
John Strassner. So this is an interesting terminology question, right? Because at some point there's a continuum between what is classical control like signaling and what is classical management, which might take hours or days, or in my case with Comcast, weeks to actually get me a signal, but I digress. The point here is that I think Diego in his examples, correct me if I'm wrong, is really acting much more towards the real-time level. And that real-time aspect is why people will call it a controller. Is it maybe doing a management or an orchestration function? Sure, but I absolutely agree it is not reactive and that it needs to operate in the quicker part of the space-time continuum.
Yeah.
So
this was on the packet policy, packet ECA policy. Are you far enough in the slides, or should I wait till you go all the way through?
We're through the slides and over time, so.
Oh, I should be brief. Thank you. I take that. Okay. Were you working with any particular data model for the packet? The data model or any particular info model for the packet ECA?
So far, no. Well, in the capability layer, yes.
Okay. For I2S, we created a packet ECA.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
I'm done.
That's a very good point. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Done.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me ask a question. If the chairs were to poll the working group to adopt this pair of documents, the terminology and the framework, bearing in mind that once they're working group documents, we continue to edit them and completely change the content, is there anybody in the room at the moment who is likely to object to us adopting? So either the question was too confusing or nobody's going to object. Thank you, Diego. We'll move on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, it's Frank Xia, Huawei. Okay, I'd like to introduce our capability layer, capability interface layer information model draft. Okay, next page. Okay, I think if you have read the framework document, you will know that what is our architecture. Okay, our architecture has two layers. One is service layer, one is capability layer. And this document is talking about the capability layers information model. So we can see that we are in this layer. In this capability layer, we have two functions. One is to define the explicit rules for how to configure, how to govern the network security functions to treat packets. Also, we provide another monitoring functions to collector to get the network security function status to monitor them. So that's two parts of this capability interface. Okay, so this document is mainly for the information model of how to define the security related policy for the NSF. Okay, next page. Okay, so actually I have already introduced our design goal in the previous presentation. Actually, okay, let me give a brief summary. Firstly, this information model should be a standard model for the network security function to realize its security policy provision. This security policy is mainly to govern the packet that travels this network security functions. Okay, so it used to manage the packet or flows traveling the NSF, and we also design these policies based on the paradigm of the packet and the flow based way. So that's our basic method. So it can bring us some benefits, such as it can decouple the network security controller from the vendor specific network security functions and vice versa. So that's that's a standard benefit. Okay, and also we want to achieve the goal to abstract the general network security capabilities to manage them very flexibly and efficiently. And we must keep in mind that a very strict principle is that we need to avoid to introduce some potential constraints on the network security functions. So it means that our policy should be enough general and enough flexible to not ask the network security function to meet some very specific condition, something. Anyway, it should be very general. Okay, that's a basic design goal. Next page. Currently, we have divided the network security functions into 3 big categories. The first one, we name it the network security control. So its mainly goal is to inspect and process the packet and the flow in the network. Okay, so it mainly based on the information of the packet content and the flow context information. And based on this information, the network security function can do some actions on these flows. Okay, so and by applying our framework document, we use the ECA paradigm. So it means that the policy is based on the event, condition, and do some action. Okay, this is the first part. The second part is the content security control. Comparing to the first one, this part is mainly worked on the application layer. It's used to detect the malicious content in application layer, such as the file content or the URL or data blocker, to detect the security issues in the application layer and to protect against these things. So for achieving this goal, we need to specify some security profile or signature files, and with standardized input and output parameters to help us to manage them like a black box. Because in this layer, there are a lot of security functions, capabilities can run, such as antivirus, DPI, or the mailing, the anti some mail protection. So so we think that it should be some capabilities like the black box. So for this layer, for this kind of security capabilities, we think that it may be need to standardize its some standardized interface for its updating. Maybe we need to update its intelligence or its algorithms when the vendors has detected some new attack and want to update their intelligence. So that's the second part. The third part is the attack mitigation control block. These categories include the security capabilities, which is dealing with all kinds of attack, network attack, such as the DDoS attack or single packet attack or IPv4 attack. Okay, and also this security capabilities also need some standard interface to specify their their behavior and their customize their capabilities. Okay.
So Frank, you had 10 minutes. You've got 12 slides, and you've just done 4 of them in about 7 minutes. So
I think, yeah, the left page will be quick. Okay, this is the whole architecture of the information model. We think that the network security control should be the main block in the middle. So it means that we should inspect the packet flow firstly, and then decide our next step. For example, maybe we need some more intelligent content security capabilities or attack mitigation capabilities. So that's the main architecture of the information model. And okay, in this 0.5 version, actually we do the work to make this document be aligned to the ECA model. So we changed our original information model. Previously we used Okay. So ECA, event and condition and action. So the event can include some time transport or some user actions, and the conditions include the packet content and the contact information, and the action. We divide the action to 3 categories. One is ingress port actions, and another is egress action, and some high level or some security profiles. Okay, so the basic logic for the ECA is that if the event clause is true and if condition clause is true, then execute some action. Okay, next page. Okay, in this page, actually also in our draft, we list the very detailed attributes that belong to every every part of the information model. What is packet content, what is the packet head, and what is context information such as the schedule, the region, the target, and the session state and the direction. So you can see all the detailed information. Okay, next page. And this is about the content security capabilities. Currently, we just define some, we think that is like a black box. So some high-level security capabilities listed here is just be called by our network security function. Okay, next page. And the same condition applies to the attack mitigation control block. It should include a lot of DDoS attack protection capabilities. So we just call them with some parameters to customize their specific action. Okay, next page. And okay, this is some formal format. Okay, next page. Maybe yeah. Okay, next step. We think we need more comments and feedback from the working group to help us to further improve our draft. And I think next step we need to add more detailed content about the content security control information model and attack mitigation control block information model, because currently we only have some functions there, but not very specified. And I think we also need to add some details about what is a constraint, what is the event. Yeah, that's all we need to improve in the future. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Any comments?
So I know you're desperate to make a comment. I'm
desperate.
desperate to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk that's on the agenda. So can we roll on and either grab him in the corridor or go to the mailing list? Thanks. And we'd still be behind, but yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
So it's you, John, I think. Is it?
Yeah, you're after John. You're after John. You're after John, yeah.
If you can do it in -3 minutes, yeah.
3.
-3.
-3. Okay. Thank you, Adrian's mom. So this draft is all about, and I'll pay for that one later. This one is all about defining a new construct to identify users. So you can skip the next slide and go to the slide after. One more. So traditionally, a lot of network controllers have worked upon a user where the user is related specifically to an IP address or a MAC address or something that's static. And that doesn't really work well, especially in new BYOD environments or in a home environment like what Diego was expressing, because what if his son or daughter switches to a phone, right, that's connected to the home network, right? Then why do I have to make specific policies and make sure that they're synchronized for all these different devices that are really about the same person? So click, and click, since I described that. So what we really want to do then is, I'll go ahead and click, is come up with a concept which we called a user group access profile. This is an identity to represent groups of users, and we will use policies to define the criteria that make up what a user group is. So it could be time of day, it could be a MAC or an IP address, it could be, gee, they're logging in on this access point in this particular geographical location. And so now by abstracting the user from just a MAC or an IP address and applying policies to allow the operator to specify what defines this user, hopefully we give operators the flexibility to control this. Click. So
I think we have a rendering problem.
Ah.
Here we go. It was a bit fast.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So you're speeding me up in spite of myself. Okay. But so basically there's 3 main components to this, in addition, of course, to our friendly NSFs. There's a policy server, which is where the policies are defined. There's the security controller, which we've discussed a little bit. And then there's a AAA server that does authentication, authorization, accounting, perhaps auditing, other related functions. Click. Which is described here. Click. And so this is just, you know, a hypothetical example. These user groups could learn, could be inspired, for example, from some of the NIST work. They could be hierarchical in nature, like what RBAC is, or they could be a flat space. We haven't made that decision, and we really need help from the working group to understand that. The key thing is that each user group has its own identifier, and yes, a user could be a member of multiple user groups. Click. And so this allows us to do intergroup policy enforcement using the standard security, deny everybody and then slowly add them in. Or if you're really risky and you want Bob to comment on you, do it the other way around.
software yet. So this type of attack rendered inside, see, I need to deliver the Azure service all the way to China, all the way to Germany. But if the interconnection link is down, not much you can do. And that impacts our customer. That become a big deal for us. So it's certainly a known issue because often by the time you'll be able to email, you'll be able to talk to each other, the attack life cycle is over. And you still, before the attack, after the attack, and during the attack, you don't have good visibility. Okay, next page. So our requirement saying we need to standardize the inter-provider information model. So we have a model to follow, then we can build a data model, then we can say among these information, right, we want to exchange, so we have a way to go. Today, what do? We have in one-on-one contract, and we have certain information we're willing to exchange, but those exchange are largely manual again, right? So we want to have a standardized API. That's where we start with. If we have a API talking to another provider, then we can exchange those information through the software tools. Today, we don't have. We want to have a policy exchange on the regular basis and the real-time mitigation and the forensic exchange. Provider-specific tool can be built and deployed on top of these information models. That's why, I mean, I think it's a very good suggestion, the chairs saying we go for information model, and then we can get everything flowed down. Next page. So this is just a picture to illustrate, right? See, these are the information models we're talking about. These are the secure API. These we want to be standardized. If each one has a different one, we cannot talk. That's what's today, right? So we don't have an efficient way to deal with those attacks. So we want to have a standard model to provide a secure API, programmable, achieve rapid protective response to the inter-provider connection attacks. Next page. So here is what we had before we think about the model. So we had a few things in mind. What do we want to exchange with the other provider? In this 4 category, mitigation capabilities, mitigation request and response. Okay, you tell me what you can do. I tell you what I can do. These are really provider to provider. I didn't respond all the mails online, whether there's a difference between provider and between provider and user and between yourself. Of course, there's a huge difference. Between provider, I can do this for you, you can do this for me. I am a user of Azure, I can't do much. I need you to protect me. That's pretty much it. Mitigation request and response. So those are real time. Hey, attacks are happening. I ask you to do it. You respond right away, you mitigate right away, you report to me. So the next thing is monitoring and reporting. Can we can monitor ourselves. Do we also allow each other to have certain visibility to monitor things going on on the other side? Reporting, provide the status, provide the basically real time and the non-real time. It can be regular basis. Knowledge sharing, share the forensic information to coordinate attack strategies. Next page. So we put into this structure, by the way, it's not meant to be complete. This is a first pass. So it's just saying what's maybe like. For example, in the capability exchange, we have a rate limiting, we have a surgical mitigation. In the rate limiting, you have TCP, UDP, and so on. So you have a whole bunch of rate limiting. Mostly, that's what we're using today within ourselves. And for the other part, we have black holing and BGP flow spec. There may be some modification in the future needed, but anyway, intelligent DDoS mitigation systems. So these are just some of those, and we will work with everybody to complete them. When you exchange between the provider, you can say, I do only this, this, this. I don't do the other. So, but we have a model there to follow. So we speak the same language. Next page.
So since you've had your 10 minutes, pick one last slide to talk to. Which one would you like?
Let me see what's next. Next is not needed. This one is basically those information. Next one, monitoring status and regular basis. This is fine. We already talked about all these monitoring and the reporting. The last one saying what knowledge you want to share. Okay, forensic information, honeypot, blacklist, whitelist, policies, mitigation strategy, general analytics, many things. The strategy can be tricky, right? Because we have some common link. How do we have a plan A, plan B, moving circuits, and those things I don't know yet how to put them more generic model, but certainly it's the information we want to automate and share. That's it. The next page, we're done. We are welcome for contribution, working with us to make this complete. Our goal is to use it. We want to, say standard and code it, deploy.
John Strassner. So thank you for your presentation. I think this is very interesting work. I would, and we can talk about this offline, I would just note that since you're really concerned with the underlying semantics, not just the syntax, I think an information model is a vital part of this, but you might also need some type of formal logic, whether it's first order or deontic logic and ontologies, or something else to augment that. So you might look at ISO 24707, which is common logic, and I can talk to you later.
Okay, thank you, John.
Hi, Doug Montgomery. This might be a naive question, but does this or how does this relate to things like taxi and sticks and dots in this in the IETF?
We're working with dots as well. Dots will develop signaling. Taxi, I don't know. So there are many different areas.
And I think the answer to that is coordination is required and will happen. So I'm pleased to see this work, but this work's not going to go ahead on its own, and we're not going to get into turf wars with other working groups. So I can't answer your question at the moment. I don't know how it relates to the other work, but it needs to be coordinated.
Tobias Gondrom, DOTS Working Group Co-Chair. So yes, we're definitely watching this and listening to this. If you have specific concerns, I would appreciate them maybe on the mailing list or via email, considering your time constraints here. But of course, we are interested in hearing. But from our side, I think this is interesting, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We're willing to work with anyone. We come with a problem we want to solve rather than groups.
So this is IETF work. Each working group is very small scope, narrow scope. So I2NSF is mainly focused on the policies, like security policies, and DOS focus on the singling between the DOS clients and DOS server. So this is like inter-domain policy. I want you to rate limiting certain traffic. Or I want you to be able to tell me what kind of thing you can do, whether rate limiting or whether you can report, or those kind of things.
So statements through Java from our mostly appreciated, no, you, it's you the one that, no, it's Kathleen. Kathleen, so you're sorry, I saw your name here, I was completely misled. Sorry. Our mostly appreciated area director saying that, saying literally, I can help there, I'm not likely to need coordination with sticks or taxi. Taxi is a bunch of different transports. Sticks is an information and data model, closer to mile.
Thank you, Kathleen. Frank, are you next? Yeah. As quickly as you like. Yeah, sure.
Okay, this is another part of the capability interface, and this is about the monitoring part. Okay, so we try to define the monitoring part information model for the capability interface. Okay, next page. Actually, let me note that this is co-authored by Alibaba and Huawei, and I think most of the resources and content is provided by Alibaba. But the one of the co-authors cannot be here, so I represent him to do the presentation. So actually, this page we have already seen. So I just want to say that in this slides and this draft, we talk about the monitoring part of the capability interface. Okay, next page. Okay, so how do we define the monitoring monitoring part information model? Actually, we have two steps. Okay, firstly, which information should be included for this part? So we currently we have specified some information such as the security related status and the event from the network security functions. And also we can include other information such as the traffic statistics and the policy execution report or execution result, and also operation related status. Okay, that's the information. That's the raw information. So how to categorize them, how to organize them is our information model work. So next step is how to organize them. Sorry, please, I didn't finish. Okay, so we have specified some criteria to construct the information model, such as what is alarm, what is reports, and what information is real time, what information is periodically, and what is related to the network security function, and what is related to the network event. Okay, next page. So currently we have divided the monitoring part information model to two main categories. The first category is alarm. Alarm means that the messages triggered by the certain abnormal conditions, whether it happened in the network security function itself, or it happened in the network. So some network abnormal conditions. So we can call it the system alarm or the security event alarm. Oh, sorry. Okay, another category is report. This is important. This is different. This message is triggered by some timer, so it reports periodically. Okay, and also it can be sent by the request from the center. Yeah, so this kind of message report contains more statistic information than the alarm. Okay, then the next page. Okay, in our draft, whether it's alarm or it's a report, they should all include some common, we can say common head or common information. They all should include. Or this can be the timestamp, or what time this message happened, and the network security function name, vendor name, type of network security functions, and some version information, and what is the type of this report, of these messages. So, sorry. Okay, that's common information for all the monitoring information. Okay, next page. And then we let us specifically see every category. First is alarm. Alarm. Right now we have divided the alarm into two subcategories. One is the system alarm. One is the security event alarm. So it's very easy to understand. The system alarm is about the network security function itself. What is the running state? So we can get the memory alarm, CPU, disk, session table interface, and also here, for example, the session table alarm can include the specific information about all the session, about the session throughput, the maximum session number or something. And another kind is security event alarm. This kind of alarm is related to the network events happening now. So it can be the DDoS alarm, can be the virus, can be the intrusion, can be the bottleneck or the web attack. So here I give an example of what is the DDoS alarm. So it's not that this is an alarm. This is not a report. So it triggered by when the attack happened. The network security function should report, should send this kind of alarm in real time. So it may be very quick, but the information may be not so detailed. Okay, next page. Another kind of message is the report. So report, like what I have said, the report is some more detailed information that send periodically or send by the request. So it comparing more information than the alarms. Currently, we divide the report into several kinds. We can have the attack report, DDoS report, virus intrusion. We can have the service report, which include the traffic report, policy heat report, and the DPI report, and other reports such as system operation running reports. Actually, some of the content we haven't finished, but we will add the details later. Okay, and the next page. Okay, actually, this is the 001, it's first version of this draft. So we will keep on improve on it, and we want to incorporate the existing one draft. Actually, we have already one capability interface monitoring draft, which is written by Huawei. So I think some of the content can be complemented to the current draft. So we want to merge them into one. And yeah, and also we warmly welcome your feedback and comments.
Okay. Diego, yours is the next presentation,
Exactly.
so you're using your own time.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's just a comment. Looking at the different kind of alarms and events, etc. My understanding is that this implies that the register interface should be extended to support this, because I mean, if we are not defining as a closed set of capabilities, we should not be defining a closed set of alarms. Because otherwise we are forcing ourselves to get a reduced set of alarms. So at the end, the function should be able to register their own alarms as well.
Yeah. So I understand you mean. So I think this monitoring should be synchronized with the capabilities. Yeah, what's the capability?
Not only the capability, with the registration interface. Whenever you register a new function, if you should potentially add capabilities, new capabilities not classified, or new alarms that are not identified previously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we will be careful about it. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Am I the last? No.
No.
So I'll be extremely fast. This is the third version of the attestation draft. Next one, please. Just as the principles are precisely about being able to rely on a trusted platform module that allows the user to establish a certain trust on the security function environment in general, basically on the controller, because the controller is the interface, the main interface to the user. Next one, please, because these are a restate. So the procedures is first to create a trusted channel. That is important, trusted, because the idea is that you identify the controller and you link the channel to the identity of the controller. Second is to attest the security controller itself, so you can be sure that you're talking with a right and well-behaved security controller. Third is to attest the platform. Since this is being considered in terms of a virtual environment, we're talking about the virtualization platform. We could think even in terms of attesting the security functions. Dan, please. Oh, so next one, please. So what is new in O2? Well, essentially, we have restructured the document. So we go in less detail. The document was based in an original report from a project in which we have been working, in which it was very much detailed on what the TCG procedures, the TPN, how the TPNs were created, etc. So we have changes and we have referenced external TCG documents. Second is that we have aligned the document with this idea of this asset principle and these procedures to fulfill those principles. And a discussion on the that was requested by someone in the list about a discussion on how the solution matches the identified threats. There is a better description of the remote attestation procedures and some statements about precisely the virtualization platform and not the platform in general. Though, as I said, and following the discussion before, most of the principles and procedures I do believe are generally applicable, and I'm seriously thinking precisely, or we are seriously thinking about going a little bit further and trying to make a general document with a certain paragraphs on the virtualization aspects. Next one, please. Precisely, this is one of the main ideas for the coming versions is precisely analyze where the V is needed and where not. Apart from that, is go on a more elaborated discussion on procedures, and something that is for me is of very of high interest is the definition of level of assurance. So it's not that we are going to mandate that there is an only right way of doing so, because in some conditions you will be willing to limit the degree of security for whatever in exchange for whatever other thing, bandwidth, access, or simply a little bit more of privacy, not with respect to the governments or the companies, but of privacy with respect to the people that is around you. Whatever the reason, it's like having the private mode that browsers have now, something like that. So the idea is that is define a set of level of assurance and define which are the requirements in terms of the trusted channel and the remote attestation procedures that should be applicable depending on the level of assurance. Very likely, it will be a map to the NIST set of level of assurance for authentication that, if I remember well, there are 4, 0 to 3. That would be, roughly speaking, the idea. And that's all, if I'm right.
So, Dan Romashkanu. So I just have one question. So this is kind of extremely interesting and relevant. So kind of my question is, why is that not merged? Or maybe there is a plan to merge this into the framework?
Good question. Very good question. It's not into the framework for basic reason. The framework was started in somehow before we thought about bringing those results here. We could include it into the framework. It's something that what I do plan for sure is to put a reference to the need of this trusted channel, etc., into the framework for sure. The detailed discussion of the attestation procedures, the trusted channel, etc., probably is too much. This is something that, but at least a reference for sure.
Okay, thanks. So we have 10 minutes left and 3 more presentations. So I'd like to call on everyone to be really nice to each other and try to get through your main points in 3 minutes each.
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Jung. So today I want to share our progress about the SDN-based security service using I2NSF framework. The main goal of this draft is give the input through our experience. Leverage the SDN infrastructure to utilize that infrastructure to provide I2NSF service security services. Okay, next slide. So this time, so new members joined this draft, Korean Telecom, and also a new feature is the new use case, the VoIP, VoLTE. This is service is already provided by Korean Telecom, and 2 new requirements. Next slide, please. So we implemented a prototype using I2NSF framework to leverage the SDN framework. So application gateway specify VoIP or VoLTE, some blacklist information, and then using a service layer interface, the security controller translate the high-level policy into a low-level policy according to ECA, and then VoIP IPS plus means that there is some intelligence. So using this ECA action will be provided this VoIP, the security function. Next slide, please. So, and then this VoIP, the security function interacted with the security controller, SDN controller, and then imports some packet is filtered by the switch instead of forwarded to the security function. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the scenario. So the packet is alive here, and then switch decide forward to security switch controller, and the controller forward the packet and VoIP the security function, and then decide that this packet is the spoof packet or the normal packet. Next slide. Once this packet is spoof or a scanning packet case, decide should be discarded by switch. So as you can see, the packets are discarded by the switch instead of forwarded to the security functions. Next slide. So we implemented based on open daylight and open stack and also open flow. So I want share this our experience to give some input to our working group. So next slide. So next step, we will working for the provisioning of the information model and the data model for this new use case VoIP, and then we also demonstrate to next Germany the meeting. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for that speed. I urge everyone to read that and send comments in, because I think it's really useful and interesting when people share their real experience.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is about a question that comes about data flow requirements. Where's my, oh, it's you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I2NSF is perhaps taking work out of I2RS, and in reviewing the documents, I got thinking about what happens to management protocols in the middle of DOS attacks, TCP/SYN attacks, ICMP attacks, and other bad things that seem to happen while security devices need to be operating. So as part of the review for I2S, I went into a review of I2NSF because perhaps it'll make your protocol life easier later. Next. You know what DOT says, and hopefully all of you know what DOT says about traffic. I just said most of it. I'm cutting him. Hope you're okay. Thank you. Next. So the stresses are, you really need to keep resilience during attacks. You need to perhaps break big streams up into smaller streams so they get through. And maybe you need to recombine streams at the other end. And maybe you need to have multiple pathways and recombine fragments. Go ahead. So I2S, which is hopefully helping you in the future, is now working on the requirements for this type of thing. And what we discussed, and this is new news from today and Thursday, is that we will probably use this transport mechanism. It's not on the site. You're going to have to listen. I'm sorry. The slides went in before the day. We'll probably use the standard transport requirements with security and probably encryption that NetConf and RESTConf use. We will, however, have some ability in the protocol to limit resources so you don't create your own denial of service attack on the box. So you can tune that. Next. And we will say that you need to be able to handle these times by perhaps growing up and growing down. Now, as I2NSF discovers these things, or maybe the framework specifies it, if you sort of pass along the information to I2S right now, it'll help us as we send our version of the protocol out. That was my big spiel. I had some ideas, but I think, go ahead. I think, you know, this is just the sort of things I talk about. Key management, some proprietary stuff has got to test outages and compression and chunk data. And maybe you might want to have a session layer that went over multiple TCPs and fragment reassembly. It's all in the draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for being so quick. It looks like people who are interested in this have got some background reading to do. And there's a microphone, Bob, while I find a slide.
Go down that first slide. Okay, I'll try to be quick on this, and partially in the gap analysis, SMILE is listed as part of it, and that needs to be fixed because SMILE is dealing with something different, which is the administrator communication. And one thing that I've painfully learned is going through here, or at least in my highly biased opinion, is there's no standard mechanism to inform an NSF the policy rules on when and how to trigger security alert reports into the monitoring system. No makes for a network security function to report the alert events to the monitoring system controller management system. DOS is only about DDoS learning mitigation, and MILE for inter-admin defense coordination. There are other events, ping of death, TPC attack, all sorts of other things which occur. And there are lots of proprietary solutions for this. There's really nothing here in the IETF. There is TAXI, which maybe does some of this stuff, but it's not IETF. But we don't have any way to do this. So reporting security events may occur at times when the network is under attack. Some of these attacks are against the transport layer that is supposed to carry the reports, and you can see about those discussions that were well documented in the DOC's security requirements. So what's needed is a sub-pub reporting system. A security monitor subscribes to a security defense system for selected reports. Security defense system publishes events to all subscribed monitors. But first it needs to register the defense to the monitors. These are things that we're talking about in I2NSF, and that's why I think it may fit here. Go on, crack here. And why does First Mile use secure session layer services that Sue alluded to just a moment ago? Because the same governance as in DOTS, and that is that by moving the security context up to the messaging layer, we reduce the attack surface. There are all sorts of interesting attacks that can be waged against, as I said earlier, that attackers love standards. They figure out how to break you by studying what you've done in the standard. So how can we reduce the attack surface? Though it does not require the bidirectionality that DOTS requires. Next, gotta go quickly here. So here is the same picture that Sue had, the subscription uses netcomp, using the chunking and compression, same as I2RS. Continue. And however, there was some other effort going on in MILE, which is the MILE XMPP grid, which is another pub sub model for potentially for the reporting. So I need to compare what I'm doing here to what's being done there with XMPP, which is very extensively done, but it uses TCP and TLS, which does not affect the network condition during an attack. What I've done here could be a service for XMPP instead of using TCP, using UDP with SLS. But the point here is that if we talk about one of the things that we've been dealing, just kind of say, oh yeah, that's handled, is how do we manage security systems? How do these security alerts get into our monitors for the analytics to go and the rest of it? I can't find it. So as a result, I'm proposing a mechanism here for doing this function. And that's why I call it first mile. Now, how does these alerts get into the system, which then are analyzed, and then whatever actions need to be taken outside of the working dots, the other security events. So next slide, which is basically, so next step is develop registration pub sub in first mile, which we have pub sub here in the IETF, or say no, we use XMPP and its pub sub model, and see about strengthening it against attacks. So.
Just in case you don't know, the pub sub model is part of, and the actual implementation of it in NetComp is part of the I2NSF work. So that work is on its way. I didn't want to waste time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you for everyone's tolerance in rushing the last couple of things, but we got them in. And discussion on mailing list, please, so that we are advanced before we get to Berlin, where we will see you, unless we get fired by the AD first. By the way, thanks, Mr. Messenger, for your mouse.
Anybody not signed yet?
Yeah, I want to take it out without breaking it. It's a tight fit for some reason. It's a temptation to wobble it, which I don't want to do. Actually, you can wobble that way. Thank you so much. Save the day. Yes. You know, things you never know until it's too late. Yeah. There was a moment when we were agenda planning where we actually looked at the agenda and went, oh dear, we've asked for 2 hours and we've got half an hour spare.
I know, that's what I thought.
And we got agenda requests in after the deadline and so on. And we wanted to facilitate everyone. And then, yeah. But yet we still want the main purpose was the first hour where we had lots of discussion. Okay.